You're listening to 15 Minutes of Flame with Robert Phoenix.
Hey, what's happening out there? Robert Phoenix beaming to you live from Flyover, aka Fredericksburg, Texas. What's going on out there with you folks today, the 10th of May, 2,118 years after the death of our Lord and Savior? Every day now, there's just, man, I could probably do a 3-hour broadcast and not even scratch the surface. I could do a 3-hour broadcast based on the amount of time that I have here. I could do it easily, like allotted to me with this service. Shall we just kind of go over sort of the topics, the topics of the day, at least on a, how do I say this, topical level, right? News of the day level, because we're going to get into some other stuff. I want to get into QAnon. I want to get into NXVIM, because these are like two very interesting sort of nodes that are taking place, maybe converging and not converging. We'll see how that goes. We got a little chat in the chat room already. Who is it? Here's Judy. Hi, Judy. Good day to you, Jody. Jody. Always nice to see Judy in the chat room. So let's go. Let's just cover the last 24 hours. If you would like to sit back and relive the brilliance that was May 9th. Well, it looks like Israel and Syria are having a little bit of a border skirmish there. Last night, Syria fired missiles into the Golan Heights, which, of course, Israel has essentially captured, and are using the area because it has some gas and some oil, and it's got some petro reserves, and they've got a company called Genie, G-E-I-N-E, Genie, as in gin, oil, the Genii. And that's Israel's company, and apparently they're extracting oil from captured territory from Syria. And the Syrians now are basically saying, hey, get out of here. This is our land, our territory. We want it. Now we have a border war going on, and there was some missile fire going back and forth last night. Isn't that... Oh, by the way, I'm having coffee today. You'll notice my coffee days versus my non-coffee days. My non-coffee days tend to be a bit more thoughtful, right? I ponder my words a bit more carefully. And then the coffee days, I'm just a veritable Gatling gun of speech. So yeah, they're going at it, right? And now that, so Trump has done a couple of things. Now remember, this is 5D chess. You just don't have the intellectual prowess. You don't have the processing speed. You don't have the gray matter RAM to follow everything, okay? So just, sit back, crack open a diet soda, and trust POTUS. Where'd you hear that one before? So Trump has given Israel $2 wonderful, wonderful gifts. First of all, he said, we're going to move our embassy to Jerusalem, and we're going to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Well, Jerusalem is in another part of Israel. It's not Tel Aviv, right? When you get into Jerusalem, you're into the Arab world because there's the Al-Aqsa Mosque and there's the Palestinians and Gaza. I mean, so it's a tectonic shift in terms of recognizing. It's like next level nation state recognition beyond 1948. Trump is managing to become both Harry Truman and George W. Bush simultaneously. That speaks to the power of his presidency. He's not just one president, he's two presidents, all wrapped in one. Of course, he's a Gemini. And not only that, but he has also rescinded the Iran deal. Now, Steve Crimmy sent me a really great comment yesterday. And the comment was, it's a bad deal. It's a bad deal. We have to get out of the deal. It doesn't say why it's a bad deal. Why is it a bad deal? Why is getting out of the Iran deal a bad deal? Why? And if that's the case, isn't NAFTA a bad deal? Why don't we just pull out of that too? He's able to just pull out of whatever he wants. I'm pulling out of Iran. I'm pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords, the Paris deal. People plotted that. Well, that was a great deal to pull out of. Way to go, Mr. President. Going to pull out of the Iran deal. Why not pull out of NAFTA? Well, we're going to renegotiate that. Well, why didn't you renegotiate the Iran deal? Such a great negotiator. Why didn't you negotiate that? Just curious. Just curious. You know what else is a bad deal? The Patriot Act. That's a pretty bad deal. That's a bad deal for people like me and you. That's not a great deal. Why don't you pull out of that deal? Wouldn't that be great? Pull out of that deal. A lot of deals we can pull out of. I'm telling you right now. But, it's selective deal pulling. And we don't know. Of course, we just have to trust it's a bad deal because, well, they say it's a bad deal. Do I think that there's going to be nuclear war in the Middle East? I really don't think so. I think a lot of it is theater, to be honest with you. I think what they want to do is they want to scare the shit out of people every single day. They've reinvented the Cold War because they couldn't get enough of the Cold War. It worked so well the first time. Let's do it again the second time. And then reintroduce a bunch of new people to this prospect that they could be wiped out at any given moment. The existential threat. Look, here's what I think. I think that they're going to try to get as much land as possible. Okay? They're going to try to get as much land as possible without getting into any kind of a nuclear exchange, even if they can get into a nuclear exchange. I don't think it's going to happen. Remember, flipping Iran is a big deal. I mean, come on now. Let's just be straight up with that. We're talking a country that is what? It's bigger than Texas, and Texas is a pretty big country. I love calling Texas a country. It kind of is. So you got to get, come on. Let's be clear about this. You got people there. Even though they may not really be all that thrilled about the Ayatollah, you think that they're just going to come, there might have been a small group of people that wanted to, kick the ruling regime to the curb earlier in the year when Thomas Wichter and all these other that guy's a total shill, by the way. Thomas, it's like you want a large following on YouTube. Here's what you do. You want a large following on YouTube. You talk about the secret space program. You talk about QAnon, or you have this kind of radical nationalist hey, I'm a tough guy, fuck you, kind of, draining. My testosterone is waning and draining, so I'm going to, spend whatever I can on YouTube posts or YouTube entries or Twitter posts, and we're going to have this hardcore relationship, nationalist, Zionist, neoconist, and get on board or fuck you, right? You want views and popularity? Those are your three areas. If you're listening to me, you want to start a YouTube channel, want to get a lot of hits, and you don't want to do something about cats, because cats are really good YouTube material. My cats could have their own channel, and they'd probably get more views than me, to be quite honest with you. I think Jasper might actually deserve his own YouTube channel, although they are a little sedate at times. The only time they really come alive is when I do the broadcast. Jasper wants to get in on it. But if you want to have a channel that makes some kind of statement, Secret Space Program, QAnon, radical revisionist, neocon, Zionist, warmongering, I'm a tough guy, fuck you, you're on the train or you're off it, attitude, male dude. There you go. Those are your three options. And you follow any one of them, do it consistently enough, say you have inside sources, and bang, you're off and running. So I don't think they're going to have it. Again, let's just be real about this. Flipping a country like Iran is not easy. And this is a war of attrition that's going to go on for a while. Although we do have the new moon and we have Uranus going into Taurus. We're at those final degrees of Uranus and Aries, 29 degrees, which are very funky, right? But the energy is running out. We will have one more reanimation of Uranus and Aries, and that will take place later in the year as Uranus goes retrograde and goes back into Aries. So there is a sense of volatility. There is some volatility in the air, don't get me wrong. But do I think it's nuclear volatility? And the answer to me is absolutely not. Again, how are they going to flip Iran? If this is the goal, and it's got to be a long play because they can't do it overnight. And they tried to do it. They tried to do regime change not long ago. It just didn't work. Did not work. Sanctions, starve them out, get Iran involved in these internecine conflicts, border skirmishes, continue to drain that. I mean, it's just, look, I'm not saying it's all theater, okay, because I think some of it is actually pretty real. I think when you get into the border stuff and the resource stuff, I think it's pretty real. And when people die, it's very, very real, and people do die. Even though ISIS was started in a television studio, which is a fact. Speaking of television, did you see what happened yesterday with Ray McGovern? Ray McGovern, really a white hat, one of the good guys, used to be a part of the intelligence community, worked for, if I'm not mistaken, FBI. And Ray McGovern was protesting and loudly protesting at the hearing for Gina Haspel, also known as the torture queen, the woman who oversaw Guantanamo. And Ray McGovern kind of lost his shit, which is understandable. And he went, he was basically taken down by about 3 police/security officers and taken out of the building. The whole thing is weird. It's like I was watching, Gina Haspel has her back to everybody. And she's looking into the eyes of, the senators? Doing her best to be confirmed. I'm a good person. I'm fit for the job. I'll do the best for the country. Blah, 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 blah. You ever think that with the internet and the advances of social media, right? Have you ever thought about how maybe we don't need senators and congressmen anymore? I mean, what if we just had people like actually asking her those questions directly? Wouldn't that be perhaps a bit more useful in some ways? Certainly cost less. And why do we even need to have, I don't know, it's just, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one, okay? I mean, I just step back and I look at the theater of the world and it is completely absurd. It's totally absurd. Anyway, I just don't think we're going to have a nuclear war in the Middle East. I think what will happen is that it's going to be a super pressure cooker. And that pressure cooker, again, creates psychic energy that is being fed off of. Remember that. That it's think of the relationship between a parasite and a host. You kill the host, what happens to the parasite? Well, the parasite will die. So do they want to kill the host? Do they want to wipe everything out so that there's nothing left to feed off of? I don't think so. I think they want to stay at the golden corral of Lush for as long as they possibly can. And so you'll see this thing getting dragged out because suffering and fear creates much more like energetic exchange than flat out annihilation. Right? The flat out annihilation piece might be like a crazy dark orgasm. But then what? It's like, the parasites would realize that they've shot their wad, literally. And they're rummaging around. Oh. Now what? I mean, think of this too. I mean, let's talk about this whole idea of a new world order, which I think is a very probable event for a period of time. Whether it's sort of the neoliberal, social Marxist, everybody wears, the colors of Benetton, but we're suppressed from a free speech or a freedom to assemble or in any kind of mechanism that allows us to assert our individuality, that'll be turned off like a spigot. So it's the colors of Benetton, social Marxist, New World Order reality. Or on the other side, we have the hardcore global nationalist model, which is, let's just say it's a top-down version of fascism. I would say that the colors of Benetton model is a bottom-up version of fascism. Because in that world, everybody is their own jailer and inmate in that system. That's bottom up. That's the way it worked in communist Germany and communist Russia. In Germany, you had the Stasi. And the Stasi was listing everybody. People were reporting everybody. Same thing in Russia. If you were somebody who ratted on another person because they weren't good members of the party, you were rewarded. You got a few more bowls of borscht and a couple of extra bottles of vodka for ratting somebody out. So that's a bottom up model where everybody's policing one another, which is kind of what we have in some ways. Like on YouTube.
Oh, this person's a bad person. I don't like their video. I'm going to report them.
And then the powers that be. Oh, yes, you're right. This video is questionable. Let's take it down. Let's give it a strike. You notice how everybody got their YouTube channel back? I mean, everybody that was banished to the nether regions got their YouTube channel back. That doesn't mean that it won't happen again. But it certainly created a climate of fear. Now, there are people who are still punished or locked out of Twitter or Facebook. One of my Facebook friends, Deborah, was banished for 72 hours on Facebook. It's the bottom-up model. The top-down model is when you got goons with guns and they're making sure everybody stays straight and keeps their mouth shut. So those are the two models. But again, think about that, right? Let's just ponder that for a moment. If the idea is to create a society or a world that is constantly on the verge of conflict, that is constantly on the verge of decimation, constantly on the verge of doom, whether it's rapturized doom, whether it's economic doom, whether it's nuclear doom, whatever those things are, right, generates a lot of energy. And if you're the parasite, you gotta love it. But if you have some kind of hegemony, whether it's top down or bottom up, then what happens? The bandwidth gets really flat. Really, really flat. And after a while, if you're the parasite, does that really interest you? You got people under control? Doesn't matter what the model is, because suppression is suppression. And if you're the parasite, you're looking around, wow, that was a lot more fun when people were scared shitless and running around and being hopeless and taking opioids and getting pulled off of a stage in California and being 5150. That was a lot more interesting and fun back then because clearly there was a lot of energy. There's not so much juice anymore. Everybody's just conformed. Oh, boy. What are we going to do? I guess we'll go to another planet now. This one's over. You may as well just flip the switch. We're done here. Kaboom. That's how the game works. The game works because they're invested in your being infested by them, by their consciousness, by the abject and utter fear that is stirred up so that you're producing high-grade, high-quality loosh. So I think, this is what I think is going to happen in the Middle East. I think it's going to get to a fever pitch. And I think there's going to be that 11th hour, and then all of a sudden, some miracle man comes in and saves the day. Or a woman. You never know. I don't want to be sexist. Oh, Jasper. Jasper's fired up, man. He's totally fired up. He's like running around the apartment now. He's like gone under the couch. He's in his fallout shelter. Apparently Russia has told its people to get ready for nuclear war. I guess it's always an option, but it's a final solution kind of option. Maybe the lingering agony over a nuclear conflict in a planet that's blasted out could produce a wonderful kind of dark loosh that is very exotic. It only exists under certain circumstances. Maybe that's the pedophile version of loosh, the lingering agony of a post-apocalyptic society, moaning and groaning every single day, wishing for Ben and Jerry's and baseball on Friday nights down at the local ball field. But I think we're going to get to a fever pitch, and then somebody's going to come in, and the fever pitch itself will be theater. It'll be escalated theater. Somebody's going to come in, save the day, and that person will be canonized. And keep your eyes on that person. Could be Trump. It could very well be Trump. See, I told you. Trust POTUS. All right, I'm going to segue into Anonsense, and then NXVIM. I want to talk about NXVIM first. Let's get into NXVIM. So I got a text from Emily Moyer yesterday. The text was, have you heard about Stormy Daniels? And for me, question mark. And Emily said, apparently she has a NXVIM brand near her vajayjay. You know the brands, right? There were two brands. I mean, I'm talking brands like scalding, hot brands, like branding a cow. And apparently Keith Raniere was really into the cow thing. Like he would make women put on these like fake cow udders over their breasts. And Keith Raniere was, how shall we say, just a little abusive. Also, Raniere has a history of raping very young girls. There was a time when he was, I think, 20, 21, where he had a 15-year-old lover, I'm using the term, it's probably too general, but he kept going back to her. So he was her abuser, her molester for an extended period of time. So Raniere's got a history of this going all the way back to his 20s. And what's really, I'm going to say shocking, but it gives you kind of an insight into the nature of these characters, because Raniere comes across, you watch him, he comes across as very thoughtful. You know, he's talking about integrity and ethics. You know, he's got that interview with him and his what's her name, Allison Mack. Yeah, they're going out. My cat's going out. And they're having this wonderful conversation. He's talking about ethics. Ethics. It's a great cover, isn't it? It's a great cover for a pedophile, or it's a great cover for somebody who's a serial abuser, or it's a great cover for somebody who is a sadomasochist. Where else have we heard about sadomasochism or sadism recently? Eric Schneiderman. Sounds very much like the same tactics that Keith Raniere was employing with his bitches. Bitch, get on over here. I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I want you to get here right now. It's a story where he did this with a woman. And one of the things that Raniere had on these women was he had intel, he had blackmailable information. And if the blackmailable information wasn't readily available or at hand, remember Keith Raniere is a computer programmer and likely very able to get into databases and all kinds of stuff. Now, this is a supposition on my part, but that's what Raniere's background was programming. And so it might have been a lot easier for Raniere, with the help of a few key people from a few key agencies, backed by money from the Bronfman girls, to create his own security and intelligence network, which is what he was doing. This is not new, boys and girls. This is what L. Ron Hubbard did. I mean, Keith Raniere took a page right out of Scientology. Hubbard would have the clearings, right? So what Hubbard would do is he'd have his girls, sometimes boys, but mostly girls, and they would connect with people inside of various portions or various sections and agencies of governments around the world. And what they would do is they would become lovers of these, agents, middle management, whatever. And through the auditing process, they would get information out of these guys. And when that would happen, Now they were blackmailable. You could extort things. So Scientology was in on this game long before Keith Raniere. And Scientology also got into the game of influencing politicians and paying them off so they could, run their version of their scheme, their scam, and, their gang. And Raniere was doing the exact same thing. He was employing people like Roger Stone, right? And Kristen Gillibrand's father, who tried to get out of the deal, and they didn't let him out of the deal. I think once he kind of found out what was going on, he's like, oh, I don't know. And they're like, nah, boy, you're in. You're in. We got shit on you. So this is what they do. Right? So these women were, in the NXIVM world, were easily compromised. So Raniere apparently has this woman come over at about 2 or 3 in the morning. And when he gets to his place, he gets her to take off all of her clothing and then blindfolds her. And then he takes her into a car and they drive to another location, we think. Well, apparently that's the story. She's still blindfolded and she's put on a table and naked. And while she's there on the table, somebody, we don't know who, goes down on her. Meanwhile, there are a group of people who are surrounding her who are insulting her and, throwing epithets at her right and left. Can you imagine what a mind fuck that is? Right? Here you are, you're in this position where you're completely powerless, naked. Somebody is giving you pleasure, and meanwhile, you're being completely mind fucked and told what a shitty person you are, what a weak person you are. And what happens? Well, then you associate being weak, being a victim, being pathetic with pleasure. So this was part of the NXIVM game. Now, apparently, Stormy Daniels has the brand. We're talking, again, like the same thing that they do to a cow. Keith Raniere loved this cow thing. But he didn't like his women looking like cows. He liked them looking like skinny cows. He made sure that all of his women were on a 2,500 calorie a day diet. Look at Allison Mack. Look at the Bronfman girls. Skinny. I don't know what it is, man. That's how he liked it. Skinny cow. So apparently she had a brand on. Stormy Daniels has. This is the word on the street. And if that's the case, then the connection between Stormy Daniels, which I believe to be true, by the way, and Trump takes on more sinister notes. Now, certainly feels like, if you begin to line this stuff up, that NXIVM and Keith Raniere they definitely were in the business of sex trafficking and more, obviously, whatever they get their hands on. And there are connections and links to the Clinton Foundation because, yes, they did support the Clinton Foundation. There are links to Trump through Roger Stone. Yes, Roger Stone was a lobbyist for NXIVM. Okay? Keep that in mind. And there are links to underage girls inside of the NXIVM world. One of them was India Oxenberg, who is the daughter of Catherine Oxenberg. Now, she may have been of age, but, that might be kind of barely over the wire. So what Raniere did is he got his claws into women who had connections to significant amounts of money. So India Oxenberg's father, which is Catherine Oxenberg, by the way, comes from royalty. Because she's the daughter of Prince Elizabeth of Yugoslavia. And Catherine Oxenberg was married to a guy by the name of William Whites Schaffer. And apparently he made a ton of money doing illicit things. I mean, there's basically three, most fortunes and most dynasties are made on vice. That's the quickest, fastest return on your money. Vice gives you, 200% on your money. If you can get away with it, it's a huge moneymaker. So whether it's the sex trade or the drug trade, whether it's an extortion racket, that's where the big bucks are. So India Oxenberg, daughter of Catherine Oxenberg, became part of NXVIM. And here's my sense. My sense is that they were procuring young girls, for the Epstein experience on Pedo Island. Because you had to get the girls somewhere. Somebody had to be the distributor for these young women. And there's a growing evidence that NXVIM and Keith Raniere might have been one of the channels. Now, if you are somebody like a Jeffrey Epstein or whatever, even if you're a store, you don't want to depend on solely one distributor, because if your relationship with that distributor dries up, then you're screwed. So there's probably more than one source. But Keith Raniere and NXVIM appears to be connected to Epstein and the Lolita Island experience. There's a movie from the 1970s. Let me see if I can find this thing. I remember when I first saw it, it absolutely blew my mind. And it's a film called Bilitis, and it's from 1977. And it's basically this island of young girls who are walking around naked. Patty D'Arbanville is in the movie. It's it was kind of like one of these Blue Lagoon, Summer Love kinds of movies from the 70s. But it is really on the verge of like voyeuristic pedo. I wonder if there's some, because it takes place on this island, and I just wonder if it's somehow connected to Epstein in some way. I don't think it is, but it's a very interesting, kind of connection. The director is David Hamilton. Bilitis. Born April 15th, 1933. I have to look into this guy a little bit more. Let's see, he wrote some books. Controversial British photographer and film director, best known for his photography of young women and underage girls, mostly in the nude. His signature style was called the Hamilton blur, which was achieved by smearing Vaseline on the lens. Hamilton's images sparked the art versus pornography debate. In 2016, several women came forward and accused him of raping them when they were minors many years ago. The ensuing negative publicity caused Hamilton to commit suicide. He was 83. Hamilton was born in 1933, grew up in London. His schooling was interrupted by World War II. As an evacuee, he spent some time in the countryside of Dorset, which inspired some of his work. After the war, Hamilton returned to London and finished his schooling. it goes on and on and on. His photographs were in demand by magazines such as Realities, Twin, and Photo. By the end of the 1960s, all of Hamilton's photographs appeared to have been snapped as if through a hazy mist. His further successes included dozens of photographic books with combined sales well into the millions, 5 feature films and magazine displays and museum and gallery exhibitions. In 1977, Images Gallery, a studio owned by Bob Persky at 11 East 57th Street in Manhattan, showed his photographs at the same time that Bilitis was released. At that time, art critic Gene Thornton wrote in the New York Times that they revealed the kind of ideal that was regularly expressed in the great paintings of the past. Hamilton has said that his work looks for the candor of a lost paradise. Much of Hamilton's work depicted early teen girls, often nude. He was the subject of some controversy, including child pornography allegations, similar to those which the work of Sally Mann and Jock Sturgis have attracted. For moral reasons, several of Hamilton's books were banned in South Africa. Interesting. On October 22nd, 2016, Thierry Ardisson, the host of the French talk show Salut Les Terriens on TNT CB channel, or C8 channel, named Hamilton as the alleged rapist of now radio RTL presenter Flavie Flament. According to Flament, the acts were committed in 1987 when she was 13 years old in Cap d'Agde, a naturist resort in Hérault, southern France. She mentions them in her novel La Consolation, a romanticized story based on her alleged life experiences. There just seems to be an interesting kind of correlation between this island depicted in this movie Bilitis and Epstein's Island. I'm not sure if there's any connection whatsoever, but you can see this. It's embedded in the culture. And this guy, David Hamilton, was celebrated for his quote-unquote artistic depictions of nude and semi-nude 13, 14, and 15-year-old girls. Just smear a little Vaseline on the lens and it's A-okay. Keep your eyes on this NXVIM thing. Because I think, look, are we going to open up a rabbit hole that is going to just end all the corruption, greed, and malice on the planet? Is that going to be the ultimate red pill? No, I don't think it is, because these things are very deeply embedded. Now, that's not to say that people waking up can't get a strong and powerful dose of awakening, but be very clear what's happening as a part of that process. Using the cow metaphor, again, people being moved into a pen. Hey, we're waking up. Good. We got a place right over here for you. Go watch a couple of QAnon videos. Okay. Go watch a Jordan Sader video. Okay. I'm sorry, right? I just feel like there's so much gatekeeping going on. And some people, I think, are caught up in it, and they're not even aware they're caught up in it. And there are some people that are caught up in it, and they are completely aware that they're caught up in it, and they're pushing the narrative. They're driving the agenda, which brings me to QAnon. I saw a video today, and it was basically somebody saying a lot of the things that I've been saying about QAnon. I believe it's a psychological operation. It took me, I don't know, a couple months to get there. Because I wanted to see what was really going on, right? It's like, I want to find out what's happening. And so I've been on the outer rings of Saturn with QAnon. A lot of people who are part of my Facebook world love QAnon. I don't want them to become cynical or jaded, and I don't want them to become polarized. So when I share what I'm sharing, it's with the intent of you're waking up. You're coming into a field of awakening, right? Be aware of that. You're getting some truth. You're connecting with other people. You see, this is what's been kind of fascinating about the QAnon phenomenon, is that it's created a community. It's given people a sense that there are other people out there that don't think they're weird, right? It's capitalizing on next level free speech, free thought, because it's in an environment where it's accepted. And not only is it accepted, but there's the promise of something spectacular that's going to happen, something that's going to change their world. And it's going to change their world overnight. Deliverance, redemption, rebirth, which is what many of us are looking for. And so it's created a very powerful field in which a lot of things can be experienced and unfortunately also exploited. And that's the truth. For me, so to my friends and the listeners of this show who also have an allegiance to the QAnon material, just read it with a bit of a jaundiced view. We talk about discernment. Don't toss your discernment out the window just because a few things look like they may have, manifested. Look, I've talked about stuff. I'm not trying to put myself against QAnon. I would never do that. That's like a whole different dialogue, right? But in this video that I saw, the presenter says, even a broken clock is right twice a day. And remember, this is so important. And I why didn't I think of this before? If you go back and you look at the Bush administration, what did Bush do on a weekly basis? He had conference calls with 10 of the most powerful megachurch preachers in the United States. And the reason he had those conference calls was because he wanted to deliver talking points to those congregations. We're talking big churches. Ted Haggard and his church in Colorado was one of them. And the reason I know this is because Haggard talked about it. He talked about it on an interview on NBC. Tom Brokaw was looking at, was it Brokaw or the other guy who looks like Brokaw? I think it was Brokaw. And he was looking at the rise of evangelism in the United States under the Bush presidency. And so what Bush was doing, he's aligning the talking points with these pastors of the mega churches. So when Bush had a phrase that he was using that the pastors gave to him, by the way, that the people inside of those ministries would just nod their heads. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Wonder working. Oh, yeah. Mighty men. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He's one of us. Yeah. So when that happens, what does it do? It creates a bridge of belief. QAnon is next level version of that experience. So when Trump says a storm is coming, and of course there's this little piece inside of QAnon that matches up with that, people are nodding their heads, and then we have Stormy Daniels. Is it just some kind of 5D or 6D chess moment? No, I think what's happening is that people are being seeded. They're being seeded with language. They're being seeded with certain events. And these things begin to come to some form of fruition. Because the truth community, the red pill community, is the community that this administration has targeted, inasmuch as the Bush administration targeted the evangelicals, because there was no truth community back then, although I was a minority in that. But that doesn't mean that Trump has eschewed the Christian evangelical side. No, of course he hasn't. He's got Paula White inside the White House. And Paula White pastors him up, and she connects him into the evangelical community. So now what is Trump running? He's running essentially two programs. the evangelical program and the QAnon program. And some of them actually blend in the middle. It's very powerful. This is a very, very, very powerful psychological operation. Now, do I think Trump is completely deceitful? And is he a con? You know, he's a Gemini with Uranus conjuncting his sun. I think he's capable of anything. And early on, I said, do not trust Trump. And that goes for even the people that are, even Netanyahu. Netanyahu shouldn't trust Trump. And there have been moments where Trump has kind of gone off the res. It's like, whoa, we're going to get out of Syria. Do you think that that was something that was planned? No. I think Trump actually said, we're getting out of Syria. And what happened? We're not out of Syria. So everybody that said, okay, we're aligned. And all of a sudden he goes off the res. That's what I'm talking about. It's in his chart. So you have to be very, very, how do I say this? Alert. You have to be awake. High beams on, wide awake. So again, for you people that are heavily vested in QAnon, please, this is not a disparaging comment to you. I'm not knocking you down a peg or two because I don't believe the same thing you believe in with QAnon. Just use your better judgment. And I understand it's connected you in with people that you feel a sense of purpose with, a sense of being able to share ideas, a sense of hope, and to a large extent reinvesting in the idea of the United States. Because on some level, we want that. We crave that. We want to feel proud of our lives. We want to feel proud of our kids. We want to feel proud of our work. We want to feel proud of the person that we wake up with every morning and go to sleep with every night. We want to feel proud of our lives even if we don't have that. We want to feel proud of the country that we're in. You know, I remember as a kid growing up in the 70s, I was having a rough time with America because we weren't winning, and there was a reason for that. Can you tell I've had coffee today? Today's a coffee show. There's a reason for that. Demoralization. So when something or somebody comes along and says, you can believe in this, it's like there's this little seed, this little kind of nascent amount of pride. It's like, oh God, yes, water it, please, water this. I want to feel proud of the country that I'm a part of. Well, to feel proud of the country you're a part of, one of the first things you're going to have to do is you're going to have to disassemble some of this shit. Okay, because your country is involved in heinous, and I mean heinous acts of imperialism all around the globe. And people say, well, Trump has just gotten in. He's only been here for 2 years. You give him time. Well, why don't you give him 20 years? Maybe that'll help. You know, we're selling arms, big arms deals to Saudi Arabia. And what are they doing? They're bombing the shit and strafing Yemen and killing kids and killing women. They actually strafed a wedding. Okay, that's what we are involved with. Okay, that should not make you proud to be an American, and that's part of this really fucked up psychological operation. You're twisted up in knots. You don't know what to think. You don't know what to believe, and it's not going to get any better. I'm telling you, it's not going to get much better because there's going to be so much happening. Right? Oh, I want to believe in this. 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 Oh, yeah. You can't. What do you believe in then? If that's the case, what do you believe? Well, first of all, you got to believe in yourself. That's first and foremost. If you don't believe in yourself, you're screwed. Right? Start there. And not false belief, real belief, right? I believe that I can manifest in the world that there is a spirit of creation, a spirit of God that runs through me in my life and everybody else's lives. Hopefully. Some might have cut themselves off from that source. And from that place, then you can start to look around and build and be creative and have some semblance. Faith like a mustard seed, right? Build something, create something, get involved. Don't put it out there because everybody's waiting around for those indictments. They're just sitting back and having a vape and having a little sip off of their Diet Coke and rum, just waiting around for those indictments. Again, that's outside of yourself. You have to understand what's going on. There's things to be proud of with this country. I'll tell you what you can be proud of. You can be proud of people who have to get up and work 3 fucking jobs and make shit wages and have to pay exorbitant amounts of health care. And for some reason or another, their lives are still barely functional. Be proud of those people, right? Be proud of people who put themselves out on the line and take real risks. Be proud of a guy like Ray McGovern, who went to that spectacle with Gina Haspel. And he, it was the only way he could get heard. Find things to be proud of. There are things about this country that I think are still very viable, workable. We're going to have to dig. We have to dig to find them, okay? We're going to have to go get plutonium beneath the surface of things. But you can do it. Don't settle for garden variety, low-hanging truth fruit. By the way, Cryptic Thinker, way to show up on that YouTube channel. What is that YouTube channel? What is it? Let me see if I can find it. The YouTube channel is called Activist News. And Cryptic Thinker, who likes to post on this channel, had his comments, or his or her comment. I don't know if Cryptic Thinker is a man or a woman, so I can't assume either. Okay, I got to get on out of here. I could probably talk for another half an hour, but I got work to do. All right, this is Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to 15 Minutes of Flame. I'll be back 24 hours from today. Use your head to discern what's real. Your heart to say what's possible. Have a great